My son stood up and asked his father why he'd rehearsed lies with him. The judge was still speaking when it happened. Mid-sentence. Her voice cut off clean, like someone had reached over and turned a knob. The room didn't react right away. It froze. The bailiff stopped walking, one foot slightly forward, one hand half raised. He stayed that way. The court reporter's fingers hovered over the keyboard, not moving, not typing, just suspended. I could hear the air conditioner click on. Then nothing else. My son was standing between the benches, close enough to the microphone that it picked up his breathing. He hadn't been invited. No one had called his name. He just stood up. "I want to know," he said again, quieter this time, "why you practiced lies with me." No one told him to sit. My ex-husband didn't move. He didn't turn his head. He stared straight ahead at the judge's desk like the words hadn't landed yet, like maybe if he waited long enough, they'd dissolve. The judge lowered the paper she'd been reading. Slowly, carefully, she set it face down on the desk, aligning the edges with the stack beneath it. "How old are you?" she asked my son. 12, he said. He didn't look scared. He looked focused, like he was repeating something he'd decided he wasn't going to forget. "This is an adult proceeding," the judge said. Her voice was even, but the room stayed still. "You don't have to speak." "I know," my son said. "But he told me what to say, and it wasn't true." The word true seemed to echo longer than it should have. My ex-husband finally turned his head. He smiled, quick and tight, the way he did when a meeting went off script. "This isn't appropriate," he said. He looked at the judge, not at our son. "He's confused. He's under stress." My son shook his head once. "No," he said. "You told me to practice." The judge leaned back in her chair. The leather creaked, loud in the silence. She folded her hands together. "Practice what?" she asked. My ex-husband's attorney stood up so fast his chair tipped back against the bench. "Objection," he said. "This is improper. A child should not." The judge raised her hand. The attorney stopped mid-word. She looked at my son again. "Answer the question," she said. My son swallowed. I could see his throat move. His fingers curled around the edge of the microphone stand, then relaxed. "You told me what to say if anyone asked questions," he said. "You said to stick to it." The gallery shifted. A woman in the back row crossed her arms. Someone else leaned back instead of forward. My ex-husband laughed, short and sharp. "This is ridiculous," he said. I told him to tell the truth. My son didn't raise his voice. "You told me not to change my answer," he said. "Even if it didn't make sense." The judge's eyes stayed on my ex-husband now. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look at her notes. "Mr. 1, Harris," she said calmly, "did you rehearse testimony with your son?" My ex-husband opened his mouth, closed it. Then he leaned forward, palms flat on the table. "I prepared my child for a stressful environment," he said. "That's called parenting." My son shook his head again, this time slower. "You told me it was important," he said. "You said it had to sound the same." The words "sound the same" landed harder than the rest. The judge turned slightly toward the clerk. "Please note the child's statement," she said. The clerk nodded and began typing. The sound of the keys felt loud now, like it was breaking the spell. I realized I was holding my breath. I let it out slowly, my hands clenched around the strap of my bag on my lap. The strap dug into my palm. My ex-husband's attorney leaned in close to him, whispering urgently. My ex-husband shook his head once, sharply, without looking at him. "This is manipulation," the attorney said aloud. "This child has clearly been influenced." The judge didn't respond right away. She watched my son. "Who told you to come up here?" she asked. "No one," my son said. I decided. "Why now?" she asked. My son looked down at the floor for the first time. The scuffed toe of his sneaker, a dark mark on the tile. "Because you were going to decide," he said. And it didn't feel right. The room stayed quiet. Not frozen now. Heavy. My ex-husband shifted in his seat. His knee bounced once, then stopped when he noticed. "This is unfair," he said. "I'm being accused by a child." The judge tilted her head slightly. "You are being questioned," she said. "By someone you instructed." That landed. A man in the gallery let out a breath he'd been holding. It came out shaky. The judge looked back at my son. "Did your father tell you what would happen if you didn't say what he practiced with you?" My son hesitated. "Just a second. He said it would be bad," he said. "He didn't say how." My ex-husband stood up. "Enough," he said. "This is over the line." The bailiff took a step forward. The judge raised her hand again. The bailiff stopped. "Sit down," she said to my ex-husband. He didn't right away. "Sit down," she repeated. He sat. The chair legs scraped loudly against the floor. The judge turned to the clerk. "I'm going to pause the ruling," she said. "We're not proceeding as planned." "It's not, Tennell." She looked at my son again. "You can sit now," she said gently. My son nodded. He stepped back toward the bench, slower than he'd walked forward. When he sat down beside me, his knee bounced under the bench, fast and quiet. I didn't touch him. I didn't look at him. I stared straight ahead at the judge's desk, at the papers neatly stacked, at the pen resting perfectly parallel to the edge. The judge gathered the documents in front of her and aligned them again. "We will take a short recess," she said. "And when we return, I will have additional questions." She looked directly at my ex-husband. Very specific ones. No one spoke. No one moved. The courtroom stayed completely still. The recess didn't break the tension. It just spread it out. People stood, but no one talked. Chairs scraped softly, as if everyone had agreed to move carefully. The bailiff stepped aside to let the judge exit, then returned to his place near the wall, posture stiff, eyes forward. My ex-husband leaned toward his attorney immediately. Their heads nearly touched. His mouth moved fast. The attorney shook his head once, sharp, then whispered back. I stayed seated. My son's foot kept bouncing under the bench. The rhythm was quick, uneven. I reached down and rested my hand on my own knee instead of his. I didn't want to stop him. I didn't want him to think he'd done something wrong by needing to move. A court clerk announced the recess length. 15 minutes. Her voice sounded too normal for what had just happened. People filtered out into the hallway in small clusters. Conversations started low, then cut off when someone else walked by. A woman in a blazer glanced at my son, then looked away quickly, like she'd been caught staring. My ex-husband stood up and blocked the aisle for a moment without realizing it. Someone asked him to move. He did, stiffly, jaw clenched. As he passed our bench, he didn't look at us. The hallway smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. The vending machines hummed near the elevators. Someone laughed too loudly near the water fountain, then stopped. My ex-husband paced near the windows at the far end. He kept checking his phone, tapping the screen, then locking it again. His attorney stayed close, murmuring. My son leaned against the wall next to me. He slid his hands into the pocket of his hoodie, then took them out again, rubbing them on his jeans. "Do you need the bathroom?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. We stood there until the bailiff called us back in. The courtroom looked exactly the same when we returned. Same papers, same screen, same flag behind the judge's bench, but the air felt different, thicker, like something had been added that couldn't be removed. The judge took her seat without ceremony. She didn't ask anyone to sit. She waited until everyone had done it on their own. "Before we proceed," she said, looking directly at my ex-husband, "I want to clarify something." My ex-husband straightened, hands folded tightly in front of him on the table. "You stated under oath," the judge continued, "that you did not discuss testimony with your child." "Yes," he said. His voice was controlled again, even, practiced. She nodded once. "I'm going to ask you again. Did you rehearse answers with him?" My ex-husband glanced at his attorney. Just a flick of the eyes. "No," he said. I prepared him emotionally. I did not rehearse lies. The judge wrote something down on the paper in front of her. The pen scratched slowly. She looked up. "Young man," she said, turning to my son, "when did this conversation take place?" My son shifted in his seat. He looked at the microphone, then at the floor. "The night before," he said, "in the kitchen." I canned it. My ex-husband let out a breath through his nose. "This is hearsay," he said. The judge ignored him. "What time?" she asked my son. "After dinner," he said, when the dishes were still on the counter. I pictured it immediately. The chipped plate, the half-empty glass, the way my ex-husband used to lean back against the counter when he wanted to sound casual. The judge nodded. "And what exactly did he tell you?" My son hesitated, his fingers twisted together in his lap. He said, my son began, then stopped. He swallowed. He said I needed to remember what we practiced. The judge waited. She didn't rush him. "He said not to say anything different," my son finished. "Even if I got confused." My ex-husband shook his head slowly. "This is being taken out of context," he said. "He's misunderstanding." The judge finally looked at him again. Her expression didn't change. "Context can be clarified," she said. "Contradictions cannot." She turned to the clerk. "Pull up the shared parenting calendar." The screen on the wall lit up. Blocks of color filled the display. Names, dates, times. My son leaned forward slightly without realizing it. The judge scanned the screen. "Mr. Harris," she said, "you testified that you were out of state the weekend of March 12th. "Yes," he said. His voice was firmer now, like repetition might make it truer. She pointed at the screen. "This calendar shows overnight custody that weekend, school drop-off included." That was Cleatnit. The courtroom shifted again. A low sound moved through the room, like a chair being adjusted somewhere far back. My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor, calendars can be inaccurate. They're often updated after the fact." The judge nodded. "That's true." She clicked her pen closed. "Which is why I'm going to ask for corroboration." My ex-husband's jaw tightened. "Clerk," the judge said, "request the location logs submitted with the filings." The clerk's fingers moved fast. The screen changed. My ex-husband's knee started bouncing again. This time he didn't notice. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly as she read. My son sat very still now. His hands were flat on his thighs. He stared straight ahead. The judge looked up. "Mr. Harris," she said, "this record places your phone in town that morning." Silence spread outward from the bench. My ex-husband opened his mouth, closed it. Then he leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms like that might hold something together. "This hearing will continue," the judge said evenly, "and it will continue with accuracy." She looked at my son once more. "You did the right thing speaking up," she said, not warmly, not harshly, just factual. My son nodded, barely. The judge gathered her papers again. "We're not finished," she said. And for the first time since this started, my ex-husband didn't argue. The hearing moved forward, but nothing felt settled anymore. The judge asked procedural questions first: dates, filings, clarifications that would have sounded routine on any other day. Today, every answer felt like it was being weighed for something else. My ex-husband answered carefully now, too carefully. Each sentence came out slow, like he was stepping around something fragile on the floor. My son stayed quiet. He sat with his back straight, hands folded, eyes fixed on the edge of the judge's desk. The bounce in his leg had stopped. That worried me more than when it moved. The judge flipped a page in the file. "We're going to take this step by step," she said. "I want to understand the household routines as they were during the period in question." Routine. The word sounded harmless. It wasn't. "Mr. Harris," she said, "walk me through a typical weekday morning when your son stayed with you." End quote. My ex-husband nodded. "We woke up around 6:30, he said. "Breakfast. I'd drop him at school before heading to work." The judge wrote something down. "And on the nights before court," she asked, "was anything different?" "No," he said quickly, then corrected himself. "Nothing significant." I watched his hands. He kept clasping them together, then separating them, then clasping them again. The motion repeated every few seconds. The judge looked at my son. "Is that accurate?" My son hesitated. I felt my stomach tighten. This was different from before. This wasn't a single question. This was a rhythm, a pattern. "Yes," my son said finally. "Mostly." The word mostly didn't go unnoticed. The judge tilted her head slightly. "Tell me about the night before the hearing," she said. My son glanced at his father, then away. His eyes went to the floor, to the line where the carpet met the wall. "We had dinner," he said. "Then we talked." "I have too." "Talked about what?" the judge asked. My ex-husband cleared his throat. "We discussed what to expect," he said. "I didn't want him to be scared." The judge didn't respond right away. She flipped another page. The sound of paper turning felt loud. "Where did this conversation happen?" she asked my son. "In the kitchen," he said. "By the counter." I could see it again. The narrow space, the way voices carried there, the refrigerator humming in the background. "Were there dishes out?" the judge asked. My son nodded. "Yeah, from dinner," the judge wrote again. My ex-husband shifted in his chair. "Your Honor," he said, "I don't see how the location of dirty dishes is relevant." The judge looked up at him. Routine creates context, she said. Context matters. She turned back to my son. What exactly did your father say? My son's fingers twisted together in his lap. He took a breath. He said people might ask questions, he said, and that it was important to answer the same way every time. My ex-husband shook his head. That's not what I meant. The judge raised her hand slightly. Not enough to stop him, but enough to slow him. Did he say why it was important? She asked my son. My son thought for a moment. He said it would look bad if answers changed. The judge nodded once. She turned to my ex-husband. Did you tell him that? I told him to be honest, my ex-husband said. Consistency is part of honesty. A very teen. The judge didn't argue. She just wrote. I realized then that she wasn't looking for a confession. She was mapping something, laying pieces next to each other to see how they fit. The clerk adjusted something on her screen. The faint click echoed in the quiet room. Mr. Harris, the judge said, earlier you testified that you had minimal involvement in preparing your son for today. Yes, he said. She looked at him steadily. Based on what I'm hearing, that may not be accurate. Entry. My ex-husband's jaw tightened. I was being a parent, he said. Not a lawyer. The judge leaned back. Parents don't rehearse testimony, she said, not sharply, just plainly. That sentence landed hard. The gallery shifted again. Someone coughed. Someone else crossed and uncrossed their legs. My son didn't move. The judge looked at him once more. When your father told you to keep your answers the same, she asked, did he practice them with you? My son's eyes flicked up to his father, then back down. Yes, he said. My ex-husband exhaled sharply. That's not. What answers did you practice? The judge asked. My son hesitated longer this time. I could feel my own heartbeat in my ears. I stared straight ahead, afraid that if I looked at him, he'd stop. The ones about where he was, my son said quietly. The room felt smaller again. The judge didn't respond immediately. She closed the file in front of her and rested both hands on top of it. Mr. Harris, she said, we are now moving beyond general preparation. My ex-husband leaned forward. This is being mischaracterized. Perhaps, the judge said. That's what we're determining. She turned to the clerk. Make note that the child reports rehearsed responses regarding parental whereabouts. The clerk typed quickly. My ex-husband's attorney whispered urgently to him. He shook his head again, sharper this time. This is spiraling, he said aloud. We object to this line of questioning. The judge looked at him calmly. Objection noted, she said, and overruled. She glanced at the clock. We're going to take this one step further. My son stiffened slightly. Tomorrow, the judge said, we'll continue this hearing. My ex-husband's head snapped up. Tomorrow? Yes, she said. I want time to review additional records. The word records hung in the air. My ex-husband leaned back in his chair, arms crossing again. This time it looked less controlled, more defensive. My son let out a breath he'd been holding. His shoulders dropped just a little. The judge gathered her papers and stood. Court is adjourned for today, she said. The bailiff stepped forward. Chairs scraped. People stood. The noise rushed back in all at once. My ex-husband stayed seated for a moment longer than everyone else. He stared at the table in front of him, jaw working. Then he stood, abruptly, and turned away without looking at us. My son remained seated beside me. Are you okay? I asked softly. He nodded, then shook his head, then nodded again. We stayed there until the room was almost empty. Tomorrow felt too close. That night didn't feel like a pause. It felt like a countdown. At home, the house sounded louder than usual. The refrigerator kicked on and off. The clock over the stove ticked too fast. I set my keys on the counter and immediately moved them, then moved them back again, like placement mattered. My son dropped his backpack by the door and stood there, still wearing it, one strap slipping off his shoulder. You hungry? I asked. He shook his head. I opened the fridge anyway. Cold air spilled out, leftovers in mismatched containers. A carton of milk on the edge of its date. Normal things that suddenly felt staged, like props. I closed the door without taking anything out. He went to his room and shut the door halfway. Not slammed, just not open. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open but untouched. The court portal glowed on the screen. Filing numbers, dates, links I didn't want to click yet. My phone buzzed. A message from my ex-husband. We need to talk. I didn't answer. A minute later, another buzz. This has gone far enough. I turned the phone face down on the table. The vibration rattled against the wood when the next message came in. I slid it closer to the edge, where it wouldn't echo as loudly. In the hallway, my son's door creaked open. "Can I sleep with the light on?" he asked. "Of course," I said. He hesitated. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. I slowed myself down. "You're not in trouble." He nodded, like he'd already decided to believe me. When he went back into his room, I stayed at the table until the house settled into its late-night sounds. Pipes, distant traffic, someone's TV through the wall. I finally opened the portal. There was a new document uploaded. Time-stamped an hour earlier. I clicked. A list loaded slowly. Metadata first, then the file itself. Location, history submission. My stomach tightened. I scrolled. Dates, times, coordinates. Nothing highlighted yet. Just data waiting to be read the right way. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow. In the morning, my son ate half a piece of toast and left the crust on the plate. He wore the same hoodie again. I didn't tell him to change. The drive to school was quiet. He watched the houses pass, counting something silently under his breath. At the drop-off lane, he paused before opening the door. "Are you coming today?" he asked. "To court?" I said. He nodded. "Yes," I said. "I'll be there." He opened the door and stepped out, then turned back. "I didn't make it up," he said. "I know," I said. He shut the door carefully. At the courthouse, the hallway felt narrower than it had the day before. The same carpet, the same humming lights, different energy. My ex-husband was already there, standing near the windows again. His attorney paced while talking, one hand slicing the air in short motions. When they saw us, they stopped. My ex-husband's face tightened. He took a step toward us, then stopped when the bailiff cleared his throat. Inside the courtroom, the judge took her seat without delay. No small talk, no settling in. "We're continuing," she said, "and we're continuing with records." The clerk brought up the screen. My ex-husband sat straighter this time. Hands folded. Still. The judge scanned the document in front of her. "Yesterday," she said, "we discussed rehearsed testimony." She looked up. "Today, we're looking at corroboration. If you want note," the word landed like a weight. She turned to my ex-husband. "You stated you were out of state on multiple occasions relevant to custody." "Yes," he said. She nodded. "And you understand the importance of accuracy." "Yes." She gestured toward the screen. "This location data places your phone within 3 miles of your son's school on the morning of March 12th. My ex-husband didn't respond immediately. "That doesn't prove I was there," he said finally. The judge didn't argue. "Correct," she said. "It proves proximity." She clicked to the next page, which is why we look at patterns. Dates advanced, pins clustered, repetition. My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor, location data can be misleading. Phones aren't people." "Agreed," the judge said. "Which is why we don't rely on it alone." She looked at the clerk. "Bring up the access logs." The screen changed again. My son leaned forward without realizing it. The judge read silently for a moment. Then she looked up. "This record shows a badge entry at your son's school at 8:12 a.m., she said. "Your badge." My ex-husband's jaw worked. "That system is flawed," his attorney said quickly. "Badges are shared all the time." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is your badge shared?" My ex-husband hesitated. Just a fraction too long. "No," he said. Silence settled again. Not frozen this time. Pressurized. The judge folded her hands. "Then we have a problem," she said. My ex-husband leaned back, crossing his arms. The gesture looked smaller now, defensive. The judge turned to my son. "You said your father took you to school that morning." My son nodded once. She looked back at my ex-husband. "The records support that statement." My ex-husband stared at the table. "At the grain of the wood, anywhere but up." The judge's voice stayed even. "This court does not look kindly on coach testimony," she said. "Especially when it involves a child. 18. End quote. She closed the file. "We will proceed accordingly," she said. My ex-husband finally looked up. "Proceed how?" he asked. The judge met his eyes. "We'll discuss that," she said, "after lunch." She stood. The bailiff stepped forward. Chairs scraped. The room exhaled. My ex-husband stayed seated again, longer than before. My son reached for my hand this time, just briefly, then let go. Nothing felt finished. Lunch didn't soften anything. It just stretched the waiting. We ate in silence at a small diner across the street from the courthouse. Vinyl booths, a laminated menu with corners curling up. My son pushed his fries into a neat line and didn't touch them. I watched the door every time it opened. My ex-husband never came in. I wasn't sure if that was relief or something else. When we walked back, the sun was higher, brighter. The courthouse steps were warm under my palm when I touched the railing. Inside, the air turned cool again, recycled and flat. Back in the courtroom, everyone took their places without being told. The judge returned with a thinner stack of papers this time. That alone felt deliberate. "We're back on the record," she said. My ex-husband sat straighter than he had all day. His tie was perfectly centered now. His attorney had a yellow legal pad open, pen poised. The judge didn't look at either of them at first. She addressed the clerk. "Please confirm the exhibits submitted this morning." Relling never won. The clerk read through a list. File numbers, dates, descriptions that sounded harmless until you heard them together. When she finished, the judge nodded. "Thank you." She turned to my ex-husband. "Mr. Harris," she said, "this court has a responsibility to protect the integrity of testimony, especially when children are involved." My ex-husband clasped his hands together, unclasped them, then clasped them again. "You've maintained," the judge continued, "that your son misunderstood your guidance." "Yes," he said, "that's correct." She looked down at her notes. "And you've stated you did not rehearse answers." "That's correct." The judge lifted her eyes. "I'm going to ask you a different question." The room tightened. "When you discussed court with your son," she said, "did you tell him that inconsistent answers could hurt you?" My ex-husband hesitated. "Just long enough. I told him honesty matters," he said. "That wasn't my question," the judge replied. My ex-husband swallowed. "I may have said that changing answers could cause confusion." The judge nodded once. "Confusion for whom?" "For the court," he said. "For you," she corrected gently. My ex-husband's jaw flexed. The judge turned to the clerk. "Please display the text message exchange submitted as Exhibit 3. The screen lit up. My stomach dropped. This wasn't supposed to come yet. But there it was, a message bubble, time-stamped, his name at the top. "Remember what we practiced. Don't change it. It has to sound the same." The courtroom didn't react loudly. It didn't need to. My ex-husband leaned forward, squinting. "That's taken out of context," he said quickly. "That could mean anything." The judge didn't argue. "It could," she said. "Which is why we consider it alongside other information." She turned slightly. "Young man," she said to my son, "did your father send you this message?" My son nodded. "Did he explain what sound the same meant?" the judge asked. "Yes," my son said. "He said I shouldn't say different things to different people." My ex-husband shook his head. "That's not coaching. That's guidance." The judge looked at him steadily. "Guidance becomes coaching when truth is secondary to consistency." The sentence landed quietly, but it landed. The judge glanced at the clock. "We're going to narrow this," she said, "because this court doesn't operate on impressions. It operates on facts." She turned to the clerk. "Please bring up the school access log again." The screen changed. My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we've already addressed." The judge raised her hand. "Sit down," she said. The attorney sat. The judge pointed to the screen. "This log shows badge access at 8:12 a.m. on March 12th. Mr. Harris, you testified you were out of state that morning." "Yes," he said. She looked at him. "Is this your badge?" "Yes." "Is it shared?" "No." She nodded. "Then the badge was used by you." My ex-husband's mouth opened, closed. "That system is unreliable," he said. The judge tilted her head. "Your company relies on it for payroll," she said. "Correct?" He didn't answer right away. "Correct?" she repeated. "Yes," he said. The judge leaned back. "So it's reliable enough to track your hours, but not reliable enough to track your presence?" The gallery shifted. Someone exhaled sharply. The judge turned to my son again. "You said your father parked by the fence that morning." My son nodded. The judge turned back to the screen. "The access log corresponds with the east entrance," she said. adjacent to the fence. My ex-husband's face flushed, not red, just darker. "This is circumstantial," his attorney said. "You're drawing conclusions." The judge didn't raise her voice. "I'm identifying patterns," she said, "patterns that align with a child's account." She closed the file. "This court has concerns." My ex-husband leaned forward. "Concerns about what?" "About credibility," she said. Silence pressed down. The judge folded her hands. "When an adult instructs a child to prioritize consistency over truth," she said, "that child is placed in an impossible position." My son's shoulders tightened. The judge noticed. Her voice softened slightly. "You did what you thought was right," she said to him. "You told the truth when it mattered." My ex-husband stood up abruptly. "This is turning into a character attack," he said. "I won't accept." The bailiff took a step forward. "Sit," the judge said. He sat. The judge gathered her papers again. "We are going to proceed carefully," she said. "But we are going to proceed." She looked directly at my ex-husband. "There will be consequences for misleading this court." My ex-husband stared at her. "What consequences?" he asked. The judge didn't answer right away. She turned to the clerk. "Schedule a continuation for tomorrow morning," she said. "I want additional documentation regarding Mr. Harris's travel claims and communications." The word communications hung there. My ex-husband's attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. The judge stood. "Court is adjourned for the day," she said. The bailiff announced it. Chairs scraped. People stood. My ex-husband remained seated, hands gripping the edge of the table now. His knuckles were pale. As we gathered our things, he finally looked at my son. "You didn't have to do this," he said. My son didn't answer. He picked up his backpack and slid one strap over his shoulder, then the other. We walked out without speaking. In the hallway, my phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line: "Additional records request." Tomorrow wasn't just close. It was already here. The email sat unopened all night. I saw it every time I picked up my phone. The subject line stayed the same. "Additional records request." I didn't tap it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it meant. My ex-husband hadn't texted again. That felt intentional, like silence was the new tactic. In the morning, my son ate cereal standing up at the counter. He didn't sit. He didn't rush. He just stood there, spoon moving from bowl to mouth at a steady pace, like if he stopped, something else would start. I watched him out of the corner of my eye while pretending to scroll through emails I wasn't reading. "Do I have to talk today?" he asked suddenly. "Maybe," I said. "Only if they ask." He nodded and went back to his cereal. At the courthouse, the hallway was louder than it had been all week. Phones ringing, shoes clicking faster. A group of attorneys laughing near the elevators, their voices carrying in a way that felt wrong. My ex-husband arrived late. I noticed because the judge noticed. She glanced up at the clock when he walked in, then back down at her papers without comment. That felt worse than being called out. He looked different today. Not disheveled, more contained. His suit jacket stayed buttoned. His hands stayed flat on the table. His eyes stayed forward. The judge didn't ease into it. "We're here to address inconsistencies," she said. "And we're here to address access." She nodded to the clerk. "Proceed." The screen lit up again. My son leaned forward just slightly. He caught himself and leaned back. The judge pointed at the display. "These are location records submitted in response to yesterday's request." My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we maintain that—" "Sit," the judge said. He sat. The judge's finger traced a line across the screen. "This data places Mr. Harris's device in this county on 4 separate dates. He testified he was out of state." My ex-husband shifted in his chair. "That doesn't mean I was with the device," he said. "Phones can be left places." The judge nodded. "They can." She clicked again. "Which is why we requested corroboration." The screen changed. A new document appeared. Clean. Black and white. A list of entries. "School access logs," the judge said. "Badge entries tied to Mr. Harris's ID. I have an amber Zender." My ex-husband leaned forward. "This is excessive." "No," the judge said. "It's precise." She read aloud. "March 12th, 8:12 a.m., East Entrance." She looked up. "That's the same date your son referenced." My ex-husband's jaw tightened. "I've already addressed that." You've denied it, the judge said. You haven't addressed it. The gallery stayed quiet. No shifting this time. No murmurs. The judge turned to my son. You said your father parked near the fence. My son nodded. The judge tapped the screen. The east entrance is adjacent to the fence. My ex-husband exhaled sharply. Coincidence. The judge didn't respond right away. She flipped through her file. Mr. Harris, she said finally, did you have your badge on you that morning? Yes, he said. Did anyone else have access to it? No. She closed the folder. Then the badge was used by you. Silence settled, dense, pressed. My ex-husband's attorney leaned over and whispered urgently. My ex-husband shook his head, once, tight. This doesn't prove coaching, he said. You're conflating presence with influence. The judge looked at him steadily. Influence is established by instruction, she said. Which brings us back to rehearsal. She turned to the clerk. Please display Exhibit 5. The screen changed again. This time, it wasn't data. It was a screenshot. A text message. Stick to what we practiced. Don't add anything. It has to sound the same. The timestamp sat just beneath it. Late evening, the night before the hearing. My ex-husband stood up. That's being misinterpreted. The bailiff stepped forward. The judge raised her hand. Sit. He sat. Mr. Harris, she said, you testified you did not rehearse testimony. I didn't, he said. That message doesn't say to lie. The judge nodded. It doesn't say to tell the truth either. She let that sit. Consistency without truth is manipulation, she continued. And when directed at a child, it becomes coercive. My son's hands were flat on his thighs now. His shoulders were stiff. The judge noticed. She softened her voice just slightly. You were put in a position you shouldn't have been in, she said to him. That's not your responsibility. My ex-husband laughed once, short, hollow. This is turning into a moral judgment. The judge met his eyes. It's a legal one. She turned a page. We're going to address custody. My stomach dropped. Effective immediately, she said. This court is suspending unsupervised visitation, pending further review. The words didn't echo. They landed flat and final. My ex-husband shot to his feet. You can't. The bailiff stepped fully between him and the bench. Sit down, the judge said. He didn't. Sit, she repeated. He sat. My son's breath hitched. Just once, the judge continued. This decision is not punitive. It is protective. My ex-husband's attorney was already speaking. Your Honor, this is an extreme measure. It's a measured one, she said, based on demonstrated behavior. She looked at my ex-husband. You will comply. He stared at her, his hands curled into fists on the table. The judge turned to the clerk. Document the order. The clerk typed. The sound was loud again. My ex-husband leaned back, arms crossing tight across his chest. His face had gone still in a way that wasn't calm. This isn't over, he said. No, the judge agreed. It isn't. I will live her. She gathered her papers. We will reconvene for a full custody determination. She looked at my son again. You can step outside with your mother. We stood. As we walked toward the door, my ex-husband spoke again. You think this makes you brave? He said, not looking at me. It just makes things worse. My son didn't turn around. Neither did I. In the hallway, my phone buzzed. Another email. Subject line. Travel records submitted. I didn't open it. Not yet. The courtroom was fuller than it had been all week. I noticed it the moment we walked in. Extra chairs pulled in along the back wall. A woman from child advocacy I hadn't seen before sat near the aisle, a thin folder balanced on her knee. Two people I didn't recognize whispered to each other, then stopped when the judge entered. This wasn't just our case anymore. My ex-husband sat alone at his table. His attorney had arrived early and was already there, flipping through papers with quick, sharp motions. The stack in front of them was thicker now, taller, harder to pretend it wasn't heavy. The judge didn't waste time. This is a continued hearing, she said, and this portion will be on the record. She looked directly at my ex-husband. We are addressing credibility and risk. The word risk changed the temperature of the room. She nodded to the clerk. Please display the submitted travel documentation. The screen lit up. Receipts, dates, airline confirmations, hotel invoices, all clean, all neat. My ex-husband straightened, confidence flickering back across his face for the first time in days. "As you can see," he said, before being prompted, "these confirm my travel." The judge didn't stop him. She let him talk. "These trips were legitimate," he continued. "Work-related, planned months in advance." The judge waited until he finished. Then she said, "Let's look at them carefully." She leaned forward. The room leaned with her. "March 10th, she said, reading aloud. "Flight booked, hotel reserved." She clicked. "March 11th, she continued. "Receipt submitted." Another click. "March 12th, she said. She stopped. The silence this time wasn't frozen. It was anticipatory. "There is no outbound boarding record for March 12th, she said. "No gate scan, no departure confirmation." My ex-husband opened his mouth, closed it. His attorney stood. "Your Honor, boarding records aren't always retained." "They are," the judge said, "for at least 90 days. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She turned to the next document. "Additionally," she said, "this hotel invoice shows check-in on the evening of March 12th. My ex-husband leaned forward. "That's correct." She nodded. "In Denver." "Yes." She clicked again. "This access log," she said, "places your badge at your son's school at 8:12 a.m. that same morning." The words hung there, suspended between documents. The judge didn't look at my son. She didn't need to. She looked at my ex-husband. "Explain that." My ex-husband's face tightened. He glanced at his attorney. The attorney shook his head almost imperceptibly. "I must have traveled later in the day," my ex-husband said. "After school drop-off." The judge nodded slowly. "Then let's look at your flight." She tapped the screen. "Your confirmed departure time is 7:45 a.m., she said. "Local." The room shifted. Someone in the gallery leaned back sharply. A chair creaked. My ex-husband's attorney spoke quickly. "There could have been a rebooking." The judge nodded. "Which is why I checked." She clicked again. "No rebooking," she said. "No delay. No cancellation." My ex-husband's jaw worked. The judge leaned back. "So either the airline records are wrong," she said, "the access logs are wrong, or your testimony is." She let that sit. The child advocate in the second row adjusted her folder. Slowly, deliberately, the judge turned to my ex-husband. "Which is it?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. "I don't remember." That was it. The room reacted all at once. Not with noise. With movement. People shifting. Crossing arms. Looking at each other instead of the bench. The judge didn't respond immediately. She wrote something down. "Memory failure," she said at last, after repeated sworn statements, "is concerning." She turned to the clerk. "Please mark this as a material inconsistency." The clerk typed. My ex-husband leaned back, shoulders slumping slightly. The confidence was gone again, replaced by something tighter, smaller. The judge looked at my son for the first time since the hearing began. "You said your father took you to school that morning," she said. My son nodded. "And you said he told you what to say about where he was," she continued. "Yes," my son said. The judge nodded once. "The records support your account." She turned back to my ex-husband. "This court cannot ignore that." His attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. My ex-husband didn't respond. The judge's voice remained even. "This hearing is public," she said, "and these findings are on the record. Oh, for aid in him." The word public settled heavily in the room. She closed the file. "We will proceed to the next phase." My ex-husband finally looked up. "What phase?" The judge met his eyes. "Consequences." No one moved. No one spoke. The courtroom held its breath. The word consequences followed us into the hallway. No one spoke right away. People filed out in a loose line, slower than usual, like they didn't want to be the first to say something that couldn't be taken back. The child advocate walked past us and gave a small nod. Not encouragement, recognition. My ex-husband stayed behind. I saw him through the doorway, still seated, his attorney bent close, whispering urgently. His hands were open on the table now, palms up, like he was asking the room to give him something it no longer had. Outside, my son leaned against the wall. He slid down until he was sitting on the floor, knees pulled up. He rested his forehead on them. "Do you want water?" I asked. He nodded without lifting his head. At the fountain, the water came out warm at first, then cooled. I filled the paper cup anyway and brought it back. He drank half and handed it back to me, careful not to spill. The bailiff called us in again sooner than I expected. When we returned, the judge was already seated. The courtroom felt different now. More people had taken their phones out and put them away again, like they'd wanted to record something but knew better. "This portion will address next steps," the judge said, "specifically supervision and disclosure." "Disclosure." My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we object to proceeding without time to prepare." "You've had time," the judge said. "You've used it to deny." She turned to the clerk. "Please note the objection." She didn't look at the gallery when she spoke next. She looked at my ex-husband. "Given the inconsistencies," she said, "and the involvement of a minor in coached testimony, this court will require supervised contact only." My ex-husband pushed back from the table. The chair legs screeched. "Too loud." "This is punitive," he said. "You're punishing me because a child misspoke." The judge didn't raise her voice. "I'm limiting access because an adult misused influence." She slid a document forward. "Supervision will be handled through an approved center. All exchanges documented. All communications recorded." My ex-husband shook his head, slow and deliberate. "This will destroy my relationship with my son." The judge's eyes moved to my son. Then back. "Your actions did that damage," she said. "This order prevents further harm." The attorney tried again. "Your Honor, at minimum, we request private supervision." "No," the judge said. "Transparency is necessary here." She turned to the clerk. "Prepare the order." The clerk typed. The sound was steady, relentless. My ex-husband's shoulders slumped. Not fully. Just enough to show the effort it took to keep them up. The judge looked at him. "There's more." He lifted his head. "Because this hearing involved sworn misstatements," she said. "I'm referring the record for review." "Review by whom?" he asked. "By the court," she said. "And if necessary, by counsel." The word referral settled in the room like dust. My ex-husband laughed once, sharp. "You're going to make an example of me." The judge met his eyes. "You did that yourself." She glanced at the child advocate. "I want a report on the impact of coach testimony on the child," she said. "Within 10 days." The advocate nodded and made a note. My son shifted beside me. He pressed his hands together, then separated them, then pressed them again. I rested my elbow on the bench and kept my eyes forward. The judge addressed the room. "This court takes very seriously the misuse of authority," she said, "especially when it's quiet, especially when it hides behind preparation." She closed the file with a soft thud. My ex-husband leaned forward. "Can I speak to my son?" he asked. The question cut through the room. The judge paused. "Not here," she said, "and not today." My ex-husband's face tightened. "He deserves to hear from me. He deserves safety," the judge replied. The bailiff stepped closer, anticipating movement. My ex-husband looked at my son. "I didn't mean for this," he said. My son didn't look back. The judge stood. "We are adjourned," she said. "Orders will be served today." Chairs scraped. People stood. The room exhaled in pieces. In the hallway, my ex-husband caught up to us before the advocate could step in. He stopped a few feet away, hands raised slightly, like he was approaching a skittish animal. "I was trying to protect us," he said. My son lifted his head. "You told me not to change it," he said. His voice was quiet. Flat, even if it didn't make sense. My ex-husband opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The advocate stepped between us. "That's enough," she said, calm and firm. My ex-husband took a step back, then another. We walked away. Outside, the sky had clouded over. The light was dull, even. My son stopped at the top of the courthouse steps and looked out at the parking lot. "Is it over?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "But it's different now." He nodded, like that was enough information. Behind us, the courthouse doors closed. The sound echoed longer than it should have. The paperwork arrived before we did. By the time we got home, my email inbox was already filling with attachments. Court orders. Intake forms, instructions written in careful language that assumed no one would read them carefully the first time. My son dropped his backpack by the door again, same spot as always. He kicked his shoes off, but they didn't land where they usually did. One slid halfway under the bench, the other tipped over on its side. I picked them up and set them straight without thinking. At the kitchen table, I opened the first document, Temporary Supervision Order, my name, His name, dates already filled in. My son hovered near the doorway. "Do I have to go somewhere?" he asked. "Not today," I said. "Soon, but not today." "I wait." He nodded and went to his room, leaving the door all the way open this time. I scrolled. Rules, schedules. A list of approved supervision centers, each with an address and a phone number. Neutral places, bright rooms, one-way mirrors. The words felt clinical. Necessary. Heavy. My phone buzzed. A call from my ex-husband. I let it ring. Then another buzz. A voicemail notification. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I forwarded the court orders to my attorney and closed my laptop. The house felt too quiet with the screen glowing. That evening, my son sat cross-legged on the floor of his room, sorting baseball cards into neat piles. Commons, favorites, ones he wasn't sure about yet. I leaned against the doorframe. "Are you mad at me?" he asked without looking up. "No," I said. "I'm proud of you." He nodded once and kept sorting. "I didn't want him to get in trouble," he said after a moment. "I just didn't want to lie." "I know," I said. That was enough. The next morning, the first call came from the supervision center. A woman with a calm voice explained intake procedures, ID requirements, observation protocols. She spoke slowly, like she expected interruptions. I didn't interrupt. She asked when we'd be available. I looked at the calendar on the wall. A square already circled from before all this. A weekend my ex-husband had once insisted on. Saturday morning, I said. She typed. I could hear it. "We'll confirm with both parties," she said. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. At school pickup, my son walked toward the car slower than usual. He slid into the passenger seat and buckled himself in carefully. "Dad emailed my teacher," he said. My stomach tightened. "About what?" He asked if he could still volunteer for field day, my son said. I pulled out of the lot and parked in a space near the curb. "What did your teacher say?" I asked. "She said she had to check," he said. She looked uncomfortable. I nodded. That tracked. That evening, another email arrived. This one from the school administrator, polite, measured, asking for clarification about custody arrangements. I forwarded the order again. The response came quickly. "Thank you for letting us know. We'll adjust accordingly." Adjust. Everything was adjusting now. On Thursday, my attorney called. "We're approaching the next phase," she said. "The court will likely consolidate findings." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means the record so far is strong," she said. "And public." Public. There it was again. "They'll want to finalize," she continued, "and they'll do it in session." I pictured the courtroom, the extra chairs, the quiet. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow," she said. That night, my son asked if he could bring his hoodie again. "Yes," I said. "You can wear whatever you want." End quote. In the morning, we sat on the same bench. Same place, different posture. My ex-husband arrived late again. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just less sure where to put himself. The judge entered without preamble. "We're here to finalize findings," she said, "and determine long-term arrangements." She didn't look at my ex-husband when she spoke. She looked at the file. The clerk read a summary into the record. Calm, neutral, each line landing like a weight. Sworn statements. Contradictions. Evidence admitted. Orders issued. When the clerk finished, the judge lifted her eyes. "Mr. Harris," she said, "do you have anything further to submit?" My ex-husband stood slowly. "I never meant to harm my son," he said. The judge waited. "I was trying to control the situation," he added. That was it. No denial. No explanation. Just control. The judge nodded once and wrote something down. She turned to my attorney. "Anything further?" "No," she said. The judge closed the file. "We will proceed," she said. My son's foot bounced once, then stopped. I reached for my bag and rested my hand on it, grounding myself in its weight. The judge leaned forward. "This court has reached its determination," she said, and the room went quiet again. The judge didn't rush the words. She read them from the page in front of her, but her eyes kept lifting, checking the room as if to make sure everyone understood that this wasn't just paperwork. This was a line being drawn. "Based on the record," she said, "this court finds that Mr. Harris engaged in coach testimony involving a minor." My ex-husband's shoulders tensed. He didn't interrupt. "Specifically," the judge continued, The court finds that he instructed his child to prioritize consistency over truth and to repeat rehearsed responses regarding his whereabouts. The clerk typed steadily. Each keystroke felt final. The judge turned a page. The evidence supports this finding. She listed it without emphasis. Text messages, access logs, location records, the child's testimony. Each item separate, together, unmovable. My ex-husband stared straight ahead. His hands were folded on the table, fingers interlocked so tightly the skin around his knuckles had gone pale. The judge looked up. "Mr. Harris," she said, "this court does not take lightly the misuse of parental authority." She paused. Nor does it overlook dishonesty under oath. The room stayed quiet, not frozen this time, resigned. The judge leaned back. "We are moving now to long-term arrangements." My son sat very still. His back was straight, chin level. I could see the tension in his shoulders, like he was holding himself together on purpose. "Effective immediately," the judge said. "Primary physical custody will remain with the mother." I didn't react. I didn't let myself. "Legal custody will be shared," she continued, "with conditions." My ex-husband's attorney lifted his head slightly. "Any decision-making authority regarding the child's legal matters," the judge said, "will require transparency and third-party documentation for a period of 12 months. My ex-husband exhaled slowly through his nose. "Visitation," the judge said, "will remain supervised until further order of the court." That one landed. My ex-husband's fingers finally loosened. Just a fraction. The judge folded her hands. "This is not permanent," she said. "It is conditional." End quote. She looked directly at him. "Your behavior determines the outcome." He nodded once. "Barely." The judge turned to my son. Her voice softened, but didn't lose its firmness. "You were put in a position no child should be in," she said. "This court recognizes that." My son swallowed. "You did not cause these consequences," she continued. "Adults did." My ex-husband shifted in his seat. His mouth opened, then closed again. The judge glanced at the child advocate. "The court orders continued support services," she said, with emphasis on the child's sense of safety and autonomy. The advocate nodded and made a note. The judge closed the file in front of her. The sound was quiet, but it felt loud. "This matter is resolved for today," she said. Resolved. Not finished. Not healed. Just decided. The bailiff stepped forward. "All rise." We stood. My ex-husband stood too, slower than before. When the judge exited, he remained standing, staring at the bench she'd left behind. As people began to move, he finally turned toward us. "I never wanted it to go this far," he said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It sounded tired. My son looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time that day. "You told me to say it the same way," he said, even when it wasn't true. The words were simple. Flat. Unarguable. My ex-husband's face tightened. "I was trying to keep things from getting worse." My son shook his head. That made it worse. There was nothing theatrical about it. No raised voice, no pause for effect. Just a statement. My ex-husband looked down. His hands dropped to his sides. The advocate stepped closer. "That's enough," she said quietly. We gathered our things. As we walked toward the door, my ex-husband spoke again. "I'll do what they ask," he said. "I'll fix it." I stopped and turned, just enough to face him. "This isn't something you fix by explaining," I said. "It's something you stop doing." He nodded, once, slow. Outside, the sky had cleared. The air felt lighter than it had all week, even though nothing about our lives felt simple yet. My son took a deep breath. "Let it out." "Is that it?" he asked. "For today," I said. He nodded and adjusted the strap of his backpack. As we walked down the courthouse steps, my phone buzzed. A notification from the court portal. Final order issued. I didn't open it. Not yet. The judge returned after lunch with a different posture. Not rushed, not careful, settled. The courtroom filled again. Quieter this time. Fewer whispers. More eyes that already knew what they were here to see. The child advocate sat closer to the front now. A man I recognized from earlier hearings, another attorney, not ours, took a seat in the back row and stayed there, arms folded. My ex-husband arrived last. He paused in the doorway like he was recalculating whether to enter at all. Then he walked in and sat, placing his phone face down on the table. He didn't look at us. The judge took her seat and opened the file without ceremony. "We are resuming to address credibility findings and their implications," she said, specifically the effect of sworn misstatements on parental standing. She didn't look up yet. The clerk confirmed the record was live. The judge turned a page. "Mr. A. Harris," she said, finally lifting her eyes, "you were given multiple opportunities to correct your testimony." My ex-husband nodded once. "Barely." "You were asked directly whether you rehearsed responses with your child," she continued. "You denied it." She paused, just long enough for the denial to echo again in everyone's memory. "Evidence admitted into the record contradicts that denial," she said. She gestured to the clerk. "Please display the final exhibit." The screen lit up. This one wasn't new to me. I'd seen it in the portal. I hadn't wanted to see it here. A voicemail transcript appeared. Clean, black text on a white background, time-stamped. Late evening, the night before the hearing. The judge didn't read it aloud right away. She looked at my ex-husband first. "Do you recognize this communication?" His mouth tightened. "Yes." "Is this your voice?" she asked. "Yes," he said. The judge nodded to the clerk. "Play the audio." The sound system clicked. Then his voice filled the room. Calm. Familiar. Controlled. "Hey, just remember what we practiced. Don't go off script. It has to match what I said. That's important." The recording ended. No one reacted. Not immediately. The judge let the silence sit, long enough to be uncomfortable, long enough for it to do its work. My ex-husband stared at the table. He didn't look at the screen. He didn't look at my son. The judge broke the silence. "That statement," she said, "was made after you were advised not to involve your child." She turned a page. "And after you submitted sworn testimony stating you had not rehearsed answers." She looked at him. "Explain that." My ex-husband swallowed. He shifted in his chair, then stopped himself. "I was trying to make sure he didn't get confused," he said. The judge nodded. "You weren't concerned about confusion," she said. "You were concerned about alignment. It's was Vriemond." My ex-husband's attorney stood. "Your Honor." The judge raised her hand. "This is not a question," she said. "It's a finding." She looked back at my ex-husband. "You instructed a child to prioritize consistency with your narrative over truth." The room felt smaller again, pressed. "That is coaching," she continued. "And when done in anticipation of sworn testimony, it is misconduct." The word misconduct landed hard. The judge turned slightly, addressing the room now. "This court takes very seriously the misuse of parental authority to influence legal proceedings." She paused. "And this court does not overlook it when it happens quietly." My ex-husband finally looked up. His face had gone pale in a way that wasn't dramatic, just drained. "I didn't think," he started. "That," the judge said evenly, "is not persuasive." She glanced at the clerk. "Please note that the court finds Mr. Harris's testimony unreliable." The clerk typed. The sound echoed. The judge continued. "As a result, the court gives greater weight to the child's statements and corroborating records." She turned to my son. Her voice softened, but only slightly. "You were consistent," she said, "and you were honest." My son nodded once. He didn't smile. He didn't look relieved. He just nodded. The judge looked back at my ex-husband. "You were not." That was the moment. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just public. On the record. In front of witnesses who mattered. My ex-husband leaned back slowly, as if the chair had pushed him instead of the other way around. His hands slid off the table and dropped to his sides. The judge closed the file. "This court is modifying its prior order," she said. "Effective immediately." My stomach tightened. "Supervised visitation will remain," she said. "And additional conditions will apply." My ex-husband lifted his head. "What conditions?" The judge met his eyes. "No direct communication with the child regarding legal matters," she said. "No preparation of statements. No discussion of testimony." She paused. "Any violation will result in further restriction." My ex-husband nodded. He didn't argue this time. The judge continued. "Furthermore, this court is referring this matter for review of potential perjury." The word dropped into the room like something solid. My ex-husband's attorney inhaled sharply. The judge didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. "This is not punishment," she said. "It is accountability." She stood. The bailiff stepped forward. Court is adjourned, she said. People didn't move right away. My ex-husband remained seated. His shoulders had slumped fully now. Not defensively. Just empty. As we gathered our things, he finally spoke. His voice was low. I never thought it would end like this. My son stopped walking. He turned around slowly. You told me to remember what you said, he replied. Not what happened. The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. My ex-husband closed his eyes. Just for a second. When he opened them, he nodded once. I was wrong, he said. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't enough. The advocate stepped closer. That's all for today, she said gently. We walked out. In the hallway, the air felt different. Lighter, but not clean. Like a storm had passed and left things exposed. My phone buzzed. A new notification from the court portal. Referral filed. I didn't open it. Not yet. The courthouse doors closed behind us with a softer sound than I expected. Not a slam. Not a statement. Just a firm click, like something had finally latched. We stood on the steps for a moment without moving. People passed around us, talking about other cases, other days. The parking lot hummed with engines starting, doors closing, ordinary life continuing without waiting for us to catch up. My son adjusted the straps of his backpack again. He'd been doing that a lot lately. Tightening, loosening, making sure it sat right. Can we go home? He asked. Yes, I said. We can go home. In the car, neither of us spoke right away. I pulled out of the lot and followed the same route we'd taken every day that week. Same stoplight. Same corner where the coffee shop sat with its chalkboard sign out front. At the red light, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Final order served. I didn't open it. Not yet. I already knew what it said. My son watched the light change from red to green. Is he going to be mad? He asked. I kept my eyes on the road. He's going to have feelings, I said. But those are his to handle. He nodded, absorbing that. At home, the house felt different. Not quieter, not louder, just settled. He dropped his backpack by the door again. This time, it landed upright. I went into the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. The tap ran too long before I realized it. I turned it off and wiped the counter where it had splashed. My son sat at the table and traced a pattern in the wood with his finger. Am I still allowed to talk? He asked. To who? I said. To him, he said. About stuff. End quote. I set the glass in front of him. You're allowed to talk about whatever you want, I said. You don't have to talk about court, or answers, or any of that. He picked up the glass but didn't drink yet. What if he asks me again? I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Then you say you don't want to, I said, and that's enough. He nodded slowly. Just that? Just that, I said. He took a sip of water. Then another. That evening, the supervision center called again. This time to confirm Saturday's intake. The woman on the phone went over the same details. Location, time, what to bring. When I hung up, I felt the weight of it settle into place. Not crushing, just real. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my ex-husband. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I deleted it. No ceremony, no explanation. Just gone. Later, my son sat on the couch with his cards spread out again. He'd moved them into different piles this time. Fewer categories, less sorting. You know, he said, not looking up. It felt really quiet when you stopped answering him. I nodded. Quiet can be a boundary, I said. He thought about that. Then smiled, just a little. I like that. Before bed, he paused in the hallway. Thank you for sitting there, he said. When I talked, I wasn't going anywhere, I said. He nodded and went into his room, leaving the door open again. That night, I finally opened the court order. I read it slowly, line by line, conditions, timelines, language that didn't soften anything but didn't exaggerate either. At the bottom, the judge's name sat above a signature, clear, final. I closed the laptop. In the quiet that followed, I realized something had changed. Not everything, but enough. The next morning, sunlight filled the kitchen earlier than usual. My son ate breakfast sitting down this time. He left his bowl in the sink without being asked. As he grabbed his jacket, he paused. Hey, he said, if someone asks me again, I'm just going to tell what happened. I smiled. That's all anyone can ask. He opened the door. The house stayed quiet after he left. Not empty, just calm. For the first time in a long while, that felt like enough.